Hello everyone, in this video tutorial we're going to be tackling another set of multi-view structure cards. In IED for Project Lead the Way, we are looking at Multiview Card 5 and Multiview Card 6. They're on your screen right now. These are going to be the two objects that we're going to try to model in Fusion. We're working off this multi-view and we're going to try to extrapolate this into an isometric. I've got some construction blocks with me to kind of help make heads from tails, so to speak, with these assemblies or this object as we put construction blocks together there. So let's first take a look at Multiview Card 5 as I look at that object there. What's really distinct that my mind kind of jumps to immediately is this half circle feature. And I notice at the top or the height of this half circle if you project that over using a construction line, it would be representing this feature here in our front view. And then I've got these two tall, what I'm going to call posts, because it looks like we're kind of building a little bit of a bridge here. But these posts are represented by this rectangular surface that we see in the right view. And then the bridge, or what runs across the top here, that's represented by this skinnier rectangular surface that we see in the right view. And as I look from the top, the bridge, if you want to call it that feature that spans across those two columns or posts. This rectangle, we can see that it is half the depth as we look at it from the top, and it does cover each of those posts with a little bit of overhang actually. So we'll play around with that as it relates to the dimensions there to make sure that this kind of looks appropriate, so we have a little bit of overhang. And then what we see protruding out here on the bottom, well, that would be our half circle, this little half cylinder that we see in the middle. And so let's move over to a bit of a camera to kind of represent this with construction blocks. So I've got here the half cylinder that we'll be kind of putting in the middle, and then we have two of these taller rectangular prisms that would be sandwiching either side of that half cylinder, and they would be lined up on the front, remember, because that half cylinder had a little bit of protrusion there on the back. Let me try to center this up a bit. I know it's got a bit of an angle to it, I apologize. And then this smaller rectangular block that we see here, that would be sitting on its end, and it would serve as the bridge, so to speak. It would go across the top there as we look. Now, as I build this, and it's tough for you to see there, but let me get this lined up just right. If I'm going to pinch this and kind of bring it over, we really don't have much overhang. That thing is sitting flush. So the one thing I am going to edit as I look at the drawing versus what we're building here is I think that we're not going to have any overhang on either side of this bridge. This is going to line up flush with the two rectangular columns that we have below. Again, it's roughly the same width there. And so we're going to have that located on top. Let me see if I can rotate this all down to give you what would be the front view. It's really tricky. Let's just lay this down. The half cylinder would be there, and this would be represented right there. That would be our front view. And let me see if I can toggle over real quick so you can get a reference to that. Yeah, that looks very similar to that. I'm liking it. So this is, again, the object that we're going to be modeling in Fusion. Let's go ahead and get the party started there for Multiview Card 5. Let me pull up Fusion, and I'm going to make sure my menu is visible. I am working in a folder that I've created called 1.2.3 Structure Cards. I was working on Multiview Card 4 there. I'm going to make sure that that's saved, close that out to start a new drawing, and we're going to save this to make sure that we don't lose it. It is in the folder that I want, which is 1.2.3 Structure Cards, the folder we created in the previous drawing or video that I've featured here, and we're going to call this Structure Card MV5. Go ahead and hit save. It's going into the folder we want. I should see it pop up here. Sure do, right there. Structure Card MV5. I see it in my browser. I see it in the design file. We are ready to sketch. Now, as I take a look at how I want to create this is going to take a series of steps here, so hang with me. We are going to first probably work on that half cylinder, and then we're going to have to sketch on either side of it to create those columns. And then finally, we'll do kind of that bridge feature across the top there. So it's going to be a series of steps. Firstly, going to be, again, that half cylinder. And I'm going to pull up the multi-view one more time to get a reference of what, sorry about that, to get a reference of what we're looking at for our front view. That front view is going to be this half cylinder. So if I'm going to create that first, I want to sketch this projection of it because that's going to be easiest to draw a circle, cut it in half, trim it out, and then make an extrusion. If I'm going to start a sketch using a feature that I see in the right side view, because I see this half circle here, if I'm going to sketch that half circle in the right view, I need to be particular about the plane that I'm going to choose. The plane that I'm going to use for my first sketch, I'm going to get my menu out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. That orientation, if I'm looking at the right view, that would actually be the YZ plane, the blue and the Y and the green axes. This plane over here, the YZ plane, that's going to be the plane that we sketch on to do this half circle. And let's go ahead and get started by creating a full circle. Start on our origin. Just going to draw a circle out, and then we are going to put a dimension on it. And I'm a little rusty at what the size of the circle is, so bear with me. I know we're kind of just wanting to sketch this roughly, kind of proportionally. So we're going to call this 1.5. I'm going to use the dimension tool. I'm going to left click on the edge of that circle, drag a dimension out, and make it 1.5. Because I'm in my origin, I am fully constrained, but I'm not done yet because we are not creating a full half circle. We're actually creating a half circle. So I'm going to use a line to cut this in half. I'm going to draw a line, and since I started on my origin, I have my, what would be the, I'm looking at the z-axis here. I can go ahead and cut that in half by drawing a line that hits this intersection, and I'm going to draw it over, zoom in to make sure that I connect with that intersection. So I've got a line that connects those 2 points. And that will allow me to then trim the, bear with me, let's go into the trim command, that's the scissors here, to trim the bottom half of my circle. Notice that when I move my cursor, I'm in the trim command, left click on that, and I move over whatever I'm going to trim. Before I click on it, it'll shade it purple, which shows me what I'm going to remove. Let me get rid of that. Now this line that I drew is not black yet, so it's not fully constrained, so I need to go ahead and add one more dimension in there. I'm going to make sure that it would be considered 1.5. Now it's saying that I'm actually over constrained, which is interesting, so maybe I need to control it with perhaps a location dimension. No. Interesting. Let's delete our circle dimension. Alright, sorry about that. I was wrestling around with some constraints to figure out how to fully constrain this. I have found it, though it's going to require a little bit of undoing on your part, and for that I apologize. We're going to be using the dimension command here. Now I've created the full circle, I've created a line to bisect it, I've trimmed out the bottom of my circle now to create this half circle. Need to constrain it. Let's put some dimensions on here. I need to set that radius of 0.75, or what was a diameter of 1.5 when it was a full circle, so that's 0.75 radius. That locks in my circle here. Now I was struggling to figure out how to fully constrain this because my bottom line here is blue. Here's how I want to tackle that. Hang with me because this is a new constraint for you. You're going to need your browser. You're going to want to hit this this caret to drop down your origin to look at all the components that are here. And we're going to throw a constraint that is called collinear. And what I need to do to constrain this object is I want to say that something is collinear, meaning it's on the same line. I'm going to left click on the collinear underneath constraints, and I'm going to go ahead and say that this line, I'm going to left click on that line that cuts my circle in half, is collinear with my z-axis, which is what I'm sketching. When I click that, it turns black. I've got this extra little purple reference, which is saying that this line is going to be collinear with what I'm drawing, and that is what it takes to fully constrain this object. I'm sorry for the confusion there. Again, a new constraint we're using is called collinear. To make sure that that bottom line is collinear with our z-axis. When you do that, we're going to go ahead and hit Finish Sketch. Look at this in isometric there to see our half cylinder, and now we can go ahead and extrude this. And I do believe the extrusion distance for our cylinder, this is actually going to be a little bit in between. It's going to be 1.25. So we're going to use a distance of 1.25 to create that half cylinder. We're looking good. Now let's go ahead and create what I was calling a column or a post on either side of this. We're going to need to do that with two sketches. We're going to sketch one on this half circle and the other one on the back half circle. We're going to create a 2-point rectangle to create these columns. Here we go. Let's create a sketch. Let's choose this surface here. I'm going to sketch on the edge of that surface. Use a 2-point rectangle. I'm going to start at the end of my circle because that's where the post is going to be. I'm going to draw a rectangle up. That's just roughly proportional to what we're looking at here. And now let's go ahead and constrain it. I'm going to use a dimension here to give this a height of 3 and a depth of 1. Fully constrained already because it's locked into the side of this half circle. I've got a 2-point rectangle now that is 3 inches by 1 inch. I can hit Finish Sketch. go into my home view, and extrude the full profile out, both the half circle and the top part there, and I'm going to extrude this out a distance of 0.5 away from my half cylinder, creating a new body. I'm going to join it, and join. Let's free orbit around so you can see the backside there to see what that looks like. Perfect. Free orbit, or we can also use our view cube here. I'm going to choose that triangle to look at it from the other side. And this is helpful, looking at it from this perspective, because this is where we do the same thing on the other side. We're going to go ahead and sketch on the surface of the other surface of that half circle that I'm just showing as highlighted there. Go ahead and create a 2-point rectangle in this new sketch. I'm going to left click there and drag it up. And I can go ahead and zoom in and reference that geometry of my previous rectangle. Now I still need to put some dimensions in here because I did not constrain it. So let's go ahead and make sure that we know that this is going to be a rectangle that is 3 inches by 1 inch. We now have a fully constrained square there, rectangle I should say. Finish sketch. I'm going to move it to my home view. Actually, I'm going to move it over to this corner so I can see it from this angle. I'm going to go ahead and extrude. Select both surfaces. The arrow here is showing that I'm extruding this out, which is exactly what I want. And we're going to go ahead and make this a distance, not 1, but 0.5 as well. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to go back to my home. And we've got one more component to sketch here, which is on the top of these two posts. Now, it doesn't matter which post, but we are going to create a sketch, and we need to choose the surface of one of these. Either one is fine. I'm going to use this back one here and create a sketch from there. 2-point rectangle. Now again, this doesn't have, in the drawing that we're referencing, it had a little bit of overhang. I don't think we're going to do that in this case. We're going to go ahead and start right on that corner. I'm going to drag it over to this distance here and drop it in there. Now notice I was zooming in and out, and that helps me kind of grab object snaps that may be useful for me. Still have some blue lines, so I'm going to go ahead and put some dimensions on here to constrain it. I'm going to make this distance of 2.25. And make it a width. Oops, I clicked on the dimension there. So I'm going to hit escape, go back into my dimension. Let's make this rectangle a width of 0.5. Enter. Perfect. Go ahead and hit finish sketch. Go to our home view. And now you can see we drew this rectangle here that sits on top. And we're going to extrude both of these elements up. We're going to do this a distance 1 and hit OK. And this would be Multiview Card 4. A little modification here with the lack of overhang. If I hit into this free orbit, you can kind of see what Multiview Card 4 would look like. We got the back end of that half cylinder sticking out. That again is Multiview Card 4. Thanks for hanging with me.